Okay, here is the video. I know now it's Monday, so here is the video on the nitrogen cycle activity and what you're going to be doing with this particular activity. The nitrogen cycle, well, carbon and nitrogen cycles are probably the most important cycles that you need to know in this class. There's several cycles, but they are probably one of the most important just concepts to understand in this class. Now, most people understand the carbon cycle, no problems, because they see it. You know, you see carbon dioxide, you know respiration, you know photosynthesis, you know all these things. But the nitrogen cycle is always one that kids just have a hard time really understanding how everything moves through the nitrogen cycle. So this is one that you really want to focus on, because this is one that's not easily understood by kids, and oftentimes there's a bunch of questions that stem from this nitrogen cycle. So you have a picture here of the nitrogen cycle, kind of where everything goes. You should probably read everything about nitrogen. Nitrogen is extremely important nutrient for all living things. So it is passed around quite a bit here. Nitrogen is the most abundant element in our atmosphere as well. And so one of the issues is that nitrogen, plants and animals can't really get the nitrogen that they need just by breathing it in. So there are special things that are in the soils, like nitrogen fixing bacteria, that will actually take atmospheric nitrogen and then turn it into a nitrogen that can be used or assimilated into the plants. And that's how they get their nitrogen. Then there are parts through the decaying process where you'll have ammonification, where during decay you get ammonium that also can re-enter the nitrogen cycle as well. But then you also have special bacteria at the end to complete the cycle, bacteria at the end that actually take organic, not organic nitrogen, but they'll take the nitrogen that's in the soil and turn it back into atmospheric nitrogen, completing the cycle and then back up to the top. So this cycle is extremely important on how not only do we get nitrogen that's in the gas into plants, but also how do we get it from the plants back into the atmosphere to complete this cycle. So you want to make sure these are big words here. You want to understand that you want to make sure that you understand each of these processes. You don't necessarily need to know the name, though knowing the name of the process can make writing these a lot easier. Instead of having to explain what it is, you could just say assimilation, and then that will go, that'll be a lot shorter when writing responses rather than trying to explain the whole process here. How have humans changed the nitrogen cycle? Obviously, everything was in balance, but then we started making synthetic fertilizers over time. That is taking nitrogen that wasn't a part of the nitrogen cycle and putting it into the nitrogen cycle. Too much, we think of, there's always a saying that too much of a good thing's, people think that too much of a good thing is not necessarily bad, but this is not the case here. Too much nitrogen in the system can actually cause environmental problems. So you're going to learn, it talks about some of those things here. When we get to the back, this is the actual activity part here. It talks about nitrogen, bad nitrogen entering the atmosphere as well through combustion. But here, you're going to, you have a choice on what you want to do with this nitrogen cycle. There's two options here. You have an option for writing a story. So basically what we did last class, the carbon cycle, and you're a carbon atom going through the system. You can write a story of a nitrogen atom and basically its trip through the nitrogen cycle. I've only had a few kids actually do the story part, just because you got to get really creative here. They were a nitrogen atom, and basically, they kind of got bounced around. I can't remember how they did their stories, but there were pretty interesting stories here to describe the process of going through it, and all the directions are here. The other option is to make a poster, and this is what most kids end up doing, because they feel like it's easier. But you're going to work in partners. Both of these things you're going to be working in partners. So one other person you'll be working with. And so you can make a poster as, so a drawing. Essentially, you're going to make another version of this right here. Your cycle should be a little bit more creative in that you have different pieces here and a different drawing. Don't want to just copy the same drawing that's already on there. That's not very creative. But you're going to create your own nitrogen cycle, and you need to make sure that you put all the pieces on there. All of these pieces need to be on. And let me see here. Yeah, sorry, I have these backwards. This isn't the story. This is the story. This is the story. This is the poster. When you do your poster, you want to make sure that you include all the different pieces in your poster and descriptions of what is going on at each place. Don't just write the word, okay? Don't just write an arrow and go, oh, assimilation. You need to write what that is. Okay. Eventually, you'll take a picture of it when you're done, and it'll be something you can save as a study reference later. We'll also talk about these. I'll have probably a couple of the groups share, either their story or their poster, and you have to be able to explain the process. Okay, we have to be able to explain what is happening at each stage. It might not be something you are perfect at right now, but by the end of this year, the nitrogen cycle you have to know just like the back of your hand. That's just part of it. So many things stem from that nitrogen cycle. So poster, story, you choose. You're in groups of 2 to do this. I have over here in this cabinet right here are all of my stuff, markers, colored pencils, scissors, rulers, all the stuff there. There's a whole thing of colored pencils and a whole thing of markers right there too. Tons and tons and tons of stuff in here that you guys can use. I will also give you guys access to a construction paper. It'll be up here on my counter. There'll be construction paper for you guys to use to make your posters. So, yeah, just send me an email if you guys have any questions. But that is the nitrogen cycle activity. Thanks. Bye.